Are you ready to go?
Hi, Mom. Yeah, I'm good to go.
Brilliant. How are you doing? How is Vienna so far?
It's really like Vienna. No, it's quite hot at the moment, but actually, I'm actually thugging it out. I mean, I'm not really going out in the peak of the day, I guess, but I feel like the humidity being less here makes a big difference. So, shout out to Ireland. People think we can't handle heat, but there's something to it. It's not just the number at the end of the day. So, yeah, no, having a good time. I've got my little bum setup over here. You can kind of see behind the fan, which is a big flat screen TV that has the Wii plugged into it, which is I've gotten it down to an okay amount of lag. So yeah, we're chilling.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, just before I get into any of it, I'll also shout out Vlurk and Jules for helping out with the questions because turns out there was quite a few
Ooh.
things that wanted to be asked. I'm gonna start off with some questions about Vince mainly. We'll get then on later to communities and stuff and traveling. But for now, I've known you for quite a while in the scene. We're both very old, concerningly old. You're one of the more old school members that still happens to be about playing and T.O.ing. Do you want to just talk about your timeline starting as a player and then starting as a TO? Just tell people about it.
Yeah, I would say I started as a TO. I don't know. I don't know. Um, I I don't know. I always tell this story, but basically, Cliff Notes version is I grew up in the GA, going around in little buses or like in getting lifts to matches around the country. My dad was a coach, and so this kind of community stuff was always something in my life. And around the time I was about middle of secondary school, I was kind of falling out of love with the GA. I didn't wasn't ever really that good. And I used to go to this kind of youth club for computers called Kodo Dojo, and we all would have nothing to do after the class. So we'd walk downtown, and what do young people do in Tralee? Nothing except drink, maybe, but we were too nerdy to drink. So we would walk into sex, we'd go to the cinema, we'd have nothing else to do. So then me and my friends had an idea to start a youth club. And that youth club then became basically Kerry's first Smash Weekly, I guess. It was actually more of a general youth club, and we had one big TV with an 8-man free for all in Smash 4, but it was a weekly Smash thing. Um, so then I think in 2017, maybe a year and a half into the youth club, I was in German speaking boarding school for the summer, and it was hell. You couldn't have any English books or anything, so I literally had nothing to do for so much time. So I started writing up in a notebook brackets. Like I'd never ran a term before, like a big one. I had no idea how like anything worked, but I just started writing up. Okay, if this match happened and these people came, if I estimate that takes about 10 minutes, maybe this could be done in this amount of time. And then I thought about this for 3 weeks, and then I came back home and I ran Kingdom One, which is my first Smash tournament. And yeah, that's kind of how it started. Was that question? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was. Because everyone, I've been doing some other videos recently for the Twices Invitational shoutouts, and everyone's talked about how they started as a casual player and then a competitive player, and then, I don't think anyone there would have been a TO, at least top of my mind. There's people who have done TOing, but it's not their primary thing. Whereas you seem
Mm-hmm.
to have gone in reverse with
Mm.
TOing, then becoming a player or then becoming a competitor. I would say after that, that's yeah, no, definitely a unique story. But fair enough, you're a very unique man. That'll do it. Um, so obviously you have been probably the most established person in the Irish ultimate scene, had the biggest impact, at least in my view. But when you started in the melee scene, it was almost from the ground up, whereas newer players in the melee scene didn't know you at the time. What was it like becoming central to another scene again after you had done it once?
Um, I, to take this in mind, this is purely from a personal level and not about the scene. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was like a relapse. For me, it was like I retired from Ultimate, and then I was like, yeah, okay, I'm done with Smash Bros. And I would find new things in my life. I think some of my last years in the Ultimate scene were quite stressful for reasons that have been discussed. Um, so but then I always had this dream. So we had, as I said, we have a Kerry Smash scene, and I always had this dream. Well, logically, there would have to be a Donegal Smash scene, right? So like it just so happened that I happened to play a small bit of melee one week on my own, And then it so happened that a Donegal tournament was announced afterwards, and it so happened that I was like, well, I always wanted to go to Donegal anyways. Like just this year, I finished my goal of going to every county in Ireland, so this was part of that. So I was like, I'll go to Donegal, and then I got kind of like pulled in slowly but surely. You know, I got brought over to, I got invited to Scummit and all these things. So it was really awesome. Thank you to Josh for bringing me to Scummit. And then, of course, at Scummit, then I went to the Chowlock meeting. And I was like, well, I want to work at Chowlock. I'm going to go to Chowlock. It's a major in Ireland. Of course, I'm going to go to Chowlock. And I went from there. But yeah, it was quite nice to come into a new scene again. One thing that's been said before, but the melee scene has a really nice community atmosphere, like especially that old guard of players. There's this real wholesome energy that's very sincere, and it's hard to say how much of that comes from what. Like I do think some of this, you know, nowadays I feel like a lot of these younger communities you see, it's very ironic, not taking things too seriously, throwing big words around. It's very common. I think that might just be unfortunately like a late Gen Z culture thing. I don't know. But it was really gratifying for me after coming from a very like maybe sometimes insincere place to go to a very sincere place where everyone after every turn was thanking the TOs and everyone was really positive and gassing each other up constantly and complimenting each other and calling. I remember like I have so much memories of like Bev and Enra calling like me, like everyone the goat after they did anything that was good, you know, and like things like that were just so gratifying. So I think it was a really nice, welcoming atmosphere when coming over to the May side. It was fantastic.
Okay, very good. We'll definitely have a chat more about kind of those community similarities and differences a little bit later. But yeah, sounds like you a very Vince thing to do, which is to fall back into it after you said you're done. It sounded like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And yeah, you were saying how you know swap into melee in recent years. If you had to start your entire journey again from the very beginning, would you have picked the same games in the same order?
I don't think I could change anything because, like, you know, for me, it was never about the game. It's never been about the game. It's been about the people and the community. And as much as I always preferred Melee as a teenager, you know, I was a big Melee fan. Um, Ultimate was probably my friends in college, you know, like the team that ran level one and Odyssey and all these big events. Like that was, you know, me, the Greg, Dulgus, Tom Popstar, Pepe. Like we were all in the same friend group. Like not Pepe, but we were all in the same year in college, along with like Leg East and Boyer. And 2 years above us was Nate Fat Rolls and Begley and these people. And like these people, a lot of those names I mentioned are still in the scene today, still reactive. Like that is my group. That was my baseline. You know, when I left Kerry to go to Dublin, that was my community. So for me, the game was less important than the actual people. You know, like when we started playing, we started playing on an unmodded version of Smash 4. And then I used to get called a tier whore a lot and insulted because I was like wanted to try out like pre-patch Diddy Kong and things like that. Um, uh, so you know, yeah, it's about the people, and I still hold true to that. You know, I think the big beauty, like Smash, is the excuse uh, for the community. That's always in my view.
Very good. Yeah. No, that's very very good. I'd say we'll talk more about yeah the communities overall now. Then, gonna start with some general questions, then move to some questions about scenes away from Ireland, and then move it back to Ireland.
Mm.
Just kind of outline because I have a lot of them here. We had a chat before in Dublin about VC culture, which I think was quite insightful. In your view, what does the role, like the online component of a community, like what does that mean? How much does it matter? And like, what are your views on that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, so the biggest thing you can do to get more people in the scene, um, is to reduce barriers of entry. So that's why, you know, even in the ultimate side of things, you know, in the past I would have been an advocate for like maybe not initially. You know, when I first started, I would have been very like offline purist. Online doesn't count. All these things, especially when COVID hit, I realized the importance of online because after the COVID era, we got such a huge influx of players in the ultimate scene. You know, and these are all people who came from online first, not necessarily even brackets, but just hanging out in the Discord, making friends. You know, we had this kind of cruise culture in the ultimate Discord during that period. Um, so I think it's really important, and I think Melee showed off that lesson again more recently with this VC culture. I think it's a way to make friends and to demystify the scene and to demystify people without ever setting foot in the Academy Plaza. So I think it's quite great. Um, I think um, there is definitely a benefit with the May side of things that there's more of a reason to hop on a VC when you can screen share your games, when you can hop on, play things together. Um, but it's also is just a cultural thing. Like I think Melee just has reestablished. I think because it started as such a small, like obviously the Melee scene in Ireland was massive in the past, but like I think there was definitely like a revival which everyone talks about recently. I think starting from that smaller place at the beginning really helped it be a very close knit personal space, which made the VC it very easy just to be on VC and to talk to people. So um, that's great. I hope it keeps going. I hope it keeps growing. I mean, we're seeing the moment the VC being filled at 10 people and like 8 of them aren't even Irish. So it's going to be interesting to see how it develops. But I think it's fantastic. Yeah. And yeah, it's more removing barriers to the scene.
Yeah, no, I've definitely had a few moments where it's nice seeing like, oh, you're the person I played with, you're the person I talked to online,
Mhm.
and putting not just names to faces, but voices to faces in a weird way.
Mhm.
It's very good to see that, and yeah, we've seen the influx, especially from like other communities. We've seen the Norwegians being in recently. The Leeds players, of course, are a staple. Um,
Mhm.
fair enough. One of my favorite parts of recent events is playing, sports with people like the five-a-side or like the GA or the hurling at Scummit. I know you've hosted poker a number of times, and I just want to ask: are there any other non like Smash related, not even side events, but just kind of activities that you think more people should try out?
Oh, that's a very cool question. Well, yeah, the question isn't about this, but Astro Bears, of course, is my number one game.
Fair.
Smash is just my side thing. Everyone play Astro Bears if you haven't already. It's like €2 on the Nintendo eShop. Um, but yeah, I think it can be anything. Like we saw at Scum, we had a sauna and a beach beside us, and we just went in and out of the sauna and the beach. Like that was amazing. But I think it's anything that you can do in person with these people who are your friends is amazing. There's one person in the scene who has an idea for an event, which is really cool that I cannot talk about. But
Ah,
like that, there's cool things you can do. What I will say about this is what you might notice about these things, like the five-a-side, like the poker, is they always tend to happen on multi-day events. Now, in the past, I would have been very single-day pro because it makes the events more accessible. It's
mhm.
like it's easier to go to a one-day event because you can go there and come home afterward. You don't have to get accommodation. You can get everything done in one day. It's a much nicer for new players and most people. But I over time I begin to learn the beauty of multi-day events because it really solidifies and strengthens that core community, which is I, it's getting new players is incredible. But as I'm getting older, I starting to value more like the strong bonds you can build, like the friends you can actually make. Like it's all well and good to show up in the scene and be present, but actually making some lifelong friends, that is way more important than just attending 10 tournaments in a year. So I think these events like Kingdom kind of does it because Kingdom would be a 3 day event kind of like the main. I still have that philosophy in there where the main event is all in one day in the middle, but then we have a pre-local Friday and the Sunday we do like the five-a-side and stuff. And then you see Chowlook as well, which I'm involved in this year. You see Scummit. These are the kind of events that I think are always people's favorite events. Like we find a way to make a multi-event day event cheap for people, and then people will have their own ideas. They'll run what is it, Drunken Pirate. They'll run Mafia. They'll run poker. They'll run beach. Like Rue will be getting everyone onto the beach for some swims.
Mhm.
There's the hikes at Chow. Like all these things are amazing, and those are the kind of things that can happen with these multi-day events. So I really think it's an untapped market right now. It's obviously a bit more work to organize, but I think definitely promoting those kind of events would be really good.
Yeah, no, like I remember one of the most heartwarming things was Jade remarking that at Scum one of her favorite things was just having, the hit about with the hurling the slitter, just,
Yeah.
simple as and one thing I realized when I was writing the question is we've never had a frisbee at an event, at least to my memory, so I went ahead and ordered one. So look forward to
Nice.
that at
You- One second,
Challenge.
John. Let me just show you something. One second.
Oh, we've got props now. Okay. I'm excited. Oh, there we go.
I
You
brought
brought them.
I brought them to Vienna. Yeah.
That's incredible. They've never seen this before.
Yeah, we're gonna introduce a new technology to the Vinis, the
Brilliant, brilliant.
Venus.
Yes.
One more thing I'm going to say as well is I think a lot of people are scared off of running side events because they're afraid of scheduling and things like that. And one of my philosophies has always been with things like the Zeus challenge at level 1 and Odyssey and things like this. And
Hmm.
I can't even tell you see this is I try to run side events that aren't brackets because when you run a side event that's a bracket, that is going to take a bunch of time and it's a big hassle. And if you're playing like 5 brackets, personally, I think you kind of stop having fun. You're just busy. It's almost stressful. I think there are side events you can run like Mugen side betting. This is the perfect example. If you don't know what Mugen side
Oh
betting is,
yes.
it's a game where basically it's a fighting game, but it's CPUs, and you can get anyone. You can get Homer Simpson, you can get fucking Tony Soprano, you can get whoever you want to fight as characters, and it's CPUs fighting. So my friend Finn, who is also in my year in college, big FGC head, ran this at Kingdom and a few other events, but then just had these fake little betting tokens, and you could bet on the outcome of the CPU matches. And there's a leaderboard of who won the most money and all this stuff. So it's quite fun. It's quite cool. And what's really strong here, what I'm trying to push, is this idea that you can run these side brackets that don't have a structure. They don't need to be done at a certain time. That they can just passively happen in the background throughout the day. Or you can put one person dedicated running it and leave them off, and it's separate to bracket. And those are ways that you can create more memories for people. Give people who aren't necessarily having the best day in bracket or aren't too interested in the games something else to do while not impacting your schedule. And I think it's something more TOs need to be willing to do, because if it's done well, it can be amazing and really memorable, and it can just make your event that extra bit special for like 1 or 2 more people.
Okay, that's
There's
really
no time.
insightful. Yeah, so like just like especially rolling events, I guess is the way that I put it.
Mhm.
I think that's why the five-a-side worked, even though at the end of the day there was only one actual match. There was always people kicking about the ball.
Mhm.
That's kind of what's going on there. No, that's really good. I'll ask one more kind of quick question before we move on to the scenes away from Ireland and then back to Ireland. So Ray's Loaded Lunches, staple tournament food. Are there any
Mhm.
other food or drink spots you want to shout out that you think aren't just good to be at during tournaments, but have maybe formed some memories or feel like they're part of the tournament experience? Maybe you can talk about Rays itself if nothing else comes to mind.
Oh, that's very interesting. Hmm, interesting. And there's a lot of events. There's a lot of great places. Um, I have a lot of core memories back in the old days, like early days of Trinity Smash Bros. When I first moved to Dublin, of just going to the Wahlburger in Mary Street. It was right beside Trinity, and just going for a burger and a pint. You get a student deal and you get a pint with your burger, and it was quite nice. That's definitely where a lot of my friendships have been forged, I would say. Um, I think, it depends on the event and the venue. There's so many places that are nice. Um, Ray's, I suppose, is a bit of a meme. It's a bit of a cultural institution in Kerry and Tralee, where Ray himself is outside smoking fags for the whole time you're there, and then you go in and you get your roll, and you get a mash in your roll and a bit of gravy, and it's a
The
massive thing.
gravy.
But oh damn, it's good. It's good. Um, so yeah, no, yeah, I think the interesting thing always is that when you have a venue like that, you need to leave the main venue to get there. So it creates some logistical things in terms of getting everyone on site for the bracket, and then even like after TRC, for example, we all went to the same cafe in the morning for breakfast, and there's like 40 of us arriving like 5 minutes apart. And those poor workers, I think it was like the bear inside, just like screaming as all we just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. Uh, so yeah, yeah, there's lots of places, John.
That's fair enough. Yeah, no, I think that one thing that can add a little bit extra kind of soul to a tournament series or just a tournament overall is the food or the drink after, if it's on site. Oh, go on.
The Poor Relation in Cork. That was our staple bar, the old man bar we used to go to after every Cork event. That's the one. Poor Relation.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. But yeah, no, it definitely, the stories that get told or, we have to make the pilgrimage to raise, that sort of
Mm.
thing can certainly add to it. Which, is kind of the detriment to having like on-site food, which, is great for scheduling. But, it's good to have that one place to go to. Since you're traveling, of course, you've moved to Vienna, we'll talk about some out of Ireland stuff. So you've traveled a decent bit for Smash and for outside of Smash, and I know you've worked with TOs from other countries, other regions. What do you think makes the Irish scene unique? I know we all have that sort of feeling that the Irish scene has something special. And are there any other scenes that feel a little bit like home away from home? any of those shared qualities.
I always felt a kinship to the Scottish. Definitely, like I think especially with we used to go a lot over to Birmingham for the team regen events, which is like invasion, regen, things like that. And the Scottish were the ones who were like us, chanting in the crowds, singing, getting loud for their players. So definitely always liked the Scottish. Always felt a kinship there. Um, I've I've definitely noticed like we were at SAP a few months ago, and like shout out to Don Chan and Robbie Fresh, but they were like leading the chants. Like they had people from like all over Europe chanting, "He's not as good as Greg." Like none of those people knew who Greg was.
Yeah.
None of them did. Like maybe if it was Ultimate, maybe some people know who Greg was. No one knew who Greg was. So I think the kind of the crowd culture is something really unique about us. Um, I think also just the kind of friendliness. Like it's funny, you'll have someone who you think in the Irish melee scene is quite awkward, and the ultimate scene as well, and then you'll see them abroad, and they'll be so talkative. Like I think the bar for us is a little higher in terms of being friendly and welcoming than it is for the average nerd, because just by the Irish culture, we're very chatty people, we're very welcome people, and it's also the culture I think we create in our scene where being social is really encouraged. If you're not willing to be social, you want to go far in the scene to a certain extent. I mean, you can do well and be a good player, but ultimately, if you want to go far in the Irish Smash scene, I think you need to make friends, make bonds, start talking to people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the pillars that we kind of hold closest to. I was talking to Rich, the Norwegian player, yesterday about this, and I think the thing that's just come to mind for me now is, like someone like Bev will always be held in higher regard than, Cody Schwab ever will be, because we don't really care about the game. We care about,
Mhm.
being personable. I'm actually going to jump around the questions a little bit because you brought up something there. I just need to find out how I worded it. Yeah, so across different scenes, we tend to stand out not necessarily by being the largest scene, but by being as one of the loudest. What are your most memorable Irish crowd chants?
Ooh, I have a lot of great memories. Honestly, a lot of the big ones are Gen events because, for those who don't know, it was a big Ultimate series. I had a melee sometimes too in Birmingham, but it's we'd always have sometimes we had over 40. I think two different times we had over 40 Irish people at a region event. Like it was amazing the levels we traveled in, because you can get to Birmingham from anywhere in Ireland. Um, and it's quite cheap for accommodation and for flights. So keep that in mind. And there's an Arcadian coming in Birmingham soon, guys. Keep that in mind because it is great getting over there. Um, what I would say I love, one memory that stands out. I mean, there's lots. There's a time we were cheering for James 102. We're like, Jimbo's in the bog, Jimbo's, and then one of the commentators thought we were shouting Thatcher's in a box. Which we were not, but it was fun. Another time, I remember cheering for Wombat when he was about to beat Bloom Forever, like 3-1. Oh, like that was amazing. The whole venue, like 100 people just gather on this one tiny setup. My favorite one is probably the Regen karaoke. So the Regen that was the biggest Ultimate tournament like ever maybe in Europe. It was in the X Factor Stadium in like Leicester, like the stage,
Yes.
and it was just massive a thing. And they were meant to have karaoke. It didn't happen. Didn't happen. But the last few region events, actually, myself and Pascal had around the karaoke. So we step in, and the team's all really tired, and they say we can't do anything. They said we're too tired. So this is an X Factor stage, right? So they have a technical desk upstairs with like people doing mixing and lighting, and the people from the staff were too tired to do it. And people they've been T.O.ing all weekend. It was the biggest event ever. So fair. But me and Pascal were like, "Don't worry, we've got this. This is fine." We get Dan Bloop and Sophie uh, to go upstairs, and they start. We plug in a laptop that we stole off one of the other Irish players. Get it set up on the sound system on the stage. Dan and Sophie control the that. I get a Google Doc to share with them. I start collecting the songs with Pascal, and then we go up on the X Factor stage, and we have a massive karaoke. And I have this. I mean, there's a video of this. I might send it to you after, John. But like at the end for "Take Me Home, Country Roads," like we had a, a full stage. There must have been like 50, if not more, people on that stage just running up, and it was a beautiful memory, completely led by the Irish. And I know that's very special to me in my heart.
Brilliant. No, that not where I expected the question to go, but that's beautiful actually. So I'll need to actually find my way back in this document here. So you're talking there. Uh, yeah. So I think we, especially in the melee scene, seem to understand the Irish scene is something special, as I mentioned before.
Mhm. Mhm.
Still, do you think that there's anything that we could be learning from other scenes elsewhere? Something you've seen that feels like it's missing, or do you think that we're just perfect?
We're never perfect. It's hard to say. Actually, I have an idea. This has been my brainchild for the last few years, and then I found out from, I think, talking to Vlurk, that other scenes already have this. My idea maybe 2 years ago was to start a non-profit, like an association, as you call it in Ireland, for Smash Bros. Same way like the GA is, or like the FAI, like a non-profit body that would be for the scene. And the idea with this is we could legitimize ourselves. We could get things like Garda vetting. So for those who don't know, Garda vetting is like child safety training in Ireland. We could get insurance for events. We could get, I was talking to Alf, one of the Norwegian players who came to visit recently. So I met him in Oslo when I was helping out there. And he was talking about how they get government grants. If they reach a certain number of players in Oslo, the Oslo local government might give them a small grant. And if they reach a certain number of players in Norway, they might get another grant, and they'll collab with other orgs and get kind of cross deals and things like that. And obviously, it's not all about the money. Like financially, we're stable right now as a scene. But I do think this is something, if there's anything to be learned from other scenes, this is that. I think it has a lot of potential strengths. It kind of safeguards us a bit more. It kind of legitimizes us. And logistically, I think once you get it running, now this is a naive. I haven't looked into this properly in Ireland yet. My understanding is we just need to have an AGM once a year with a chair, a secretary, and a treasurer. And then the kind of way it works in Germany, I was talking to some of the guys at SAF. I actually was talking to one of the Ultimate TOs at SAF, and his name is escaping me right now. So I'm very sorry to him. He's one of the Hanover TOs, but he's talking about how like now when a new TO comes up in anywhere in Germany, they will lend them equipment, and then after a while, once they build trust, then they can use the scene's budget to buy their equipment like that. So that's a really cool thing where it makes it, you can reduce barriers for new TOs, you can help people out. Um, so yeah, that's kind of a pitch. Um, there's potential risks there in terms of like putting more eyes in the scene, the fact that we have alcohol and things at events, something to be looked at to make sure we're not, overstepping any boundaries, make sure we're not going to change anything. But I think that potentially is the future because we're already seeing other scenes do it across Europe.
Okay, that's very good. Not what I expected, but it does align with something I was thinking before. I know it's not quite the same thing, but I've always thought
Mm.
that I feel like if there's more, even just like creatives in the scene or people who have a project they want to do where funding is the issue, have like normalizing saying, I want to do a thing and I can't afford it, here's my plan. If it's through an association, that sounds a lot more doable, even if it's not just sending money, but sending resources. So that sounds
Mm.
pretty cool. Um, you might have already answered it then with this, but I'll ask you anyway. What's like a hidden gem quality that you might have seen in other scenes, like something less recognized, just very
Mm.
small that you'd like to appreciate out loud, or even just like a memory from other scenes?
That's a great question. I'm kind of under pressure now because I've been to a lot of different events, and I'm trying to remember which one, like a specific thing to pick out. Um, I think, hmm, I really appreciate it. I mean, I actually, this year, because I'm back. This is the year I unretired and then retired again when I moved abroad. But I actually made these documents. I'm not going to read the documents for an interview. But at both SAP, which was in Hanover, and Smash Enough, which was in Oslo, I made these big docs taking everything on board that they've done, that all the things they did well to take them on board for Chowlook. And I wrote a big doc each time and shared it with the guys. So I thought it was quite cool. A lot of the feedback I took there was the association stuff, but little small things too, like one of the things was really cute. And these are all going to be small things. I don't have like a big point here,
That's
but
okay.
like SAF had deodorant that was being refilled like in every bathroom. They had welfare officers going around handing waters to each TO. They had walkie talkies to talk across floors. Um, a it's Chase, is like a streamer in the Mason from the UK, I believe. But Chase was communicating with the other streamer and with the TOs with like a wireless headset where you could just talk down to them across the floor as well. Things like that just really prove efficiency, I think are really cool. And yeah, so there's a lot of like small things like that I really appreciate. But in terms of big things, like the association is the big thing, I guess. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, one thing kind of tangential to that that I've noticed from, well, from players that I don't know, which would
Mm,
usually be players outside of the scene, and a skill that I think if everyone in any scene learned this, it would
mm,
instantly make the scene a lot better, is saying,
mm.
"Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. What was your name?" Or "Sorry, I forgot what was your name." If you just ask people's names, because I spent so long trying to be like, "Oh, I forget that player's name. I think I know their tag. I think I know who they play." Just kind of cutting your loss and saying, "Sorry, what was your name?" Instant friend in this scene. I think
Yeah.
learning that, because some of the English players were doing that, learning that from them would be make everyone a decent bit closer with only a sentence, I think.
Makes total sense. Like so I've been working at a music festival trying to diversify my T.O.ing experience. And like you see this year, this is really wild. It's the festival I work at in Killarney. It's really amazing. Check it out next year if you're interested in a really cool camping festival. But at that, it's you see those people only once a year, right? So like you really get caught up with the names there, and it is really nerve wracking. And I'm trying to get better at doing it because, like you said, John, once you reintroduce yourself to a person, then the whole weekend you're there. You can talk when you pass them the hallway. You're gonna say, "Hey,"
That's
and it
your
might be
buddy,
much
yeah.
more than that, but it's someone you can talk to all weekend then. Whereas if you never ask the name, even if you've forgotten it, then it's just awkward, and it's even more awkward if you just kind of act like you don't remember someone. And I do this all the time. Like I think maybe from being a TO and from knowing a lot of people, I tend to get this reputation a lot that I'm like a very social person, but I'm actually not. I'm social within a context. But when it's a stranger I don't know at an event, I'm like terrified to talk to people. I'm a really awkward at asking people their names. So I think it's a skill we could all use to do more. So that's a really good point, John. I think we should definitely. And I wonder if is there ways we can facilitate that? I wonder. I mean, not we don't need to discuss it now, but that's a good point that I think we should try and hammer home um, for future events.
Yeah, no, I've considered like name tags and such, but I feel like that
Mm.
gets you away from making that conversation and it gets you away from the
Yeah,
feeling of, oh, that's your buddy. Like once I learned Alf's tag, I was like, that's my guy, for the
yeah.
weekend. And that's something that will stick with you. And another thing I'm sure that you can relate to that I certainly could maybe about 3 years ago was that a lot more people will know you than you will know. As because you're a face of the scene, especially when I was doing more streaming, I'd have people talk to me and especially I was looked very distinct then with the hair and I would just be like, yeah, man, great. And I wouldn't know who they were, but getting better at being like, sorry, I've forgotten your name, please let me know. Ask it once and showing that attention to someone, especially the types of people, Smash players who, again, socially might appreciate someone giving them that attention of like, sorry, what was your name? I didn't catch that. And showing genuine interest is super good. So I'm glad that that's something that um, we can kind of relate on. I'm going to take a quick hydration break before we get back to the kind of Irish scene questions. If you want to take one yourself.
Sounds good. I'm going to stand up.
Look at him move over there. Yeah, I could hit the standing desk for the rest of this, but my legs are quite sore, so I think I'll keep sitting. All ready to get back into it?
Yes, sir.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, so we'll talk more about kind of the Irish scene now. You've made a push for the Oscuelga commentary blocks. Is that something you want to continue? Do you have enough people to keep doing it? And is there someone that you'd like to commentate with that you haven't gotten to, either Oscuelga or Osberla?
Very interesting. Okay, rapid fire there. So yeah, I think it's fantastic. I'm a Gaeilge Gore, and like, eh, I think there's maybe a mentality there where people think they are or they aren't, but like I'm not. I mean, I've always said I'm fluent in Irish, but like I'm not fluent in Irish. You know what I mean? Like I am not like native speaker level Irish. I have basically yes, maybe. Well, I didn't even get a H1 on my leaving cert, but I would consider myself somewhere around that. Like I'm like H2 leaving cert level, but also I just have a lot more practice speaking it because I worked in an Irish college and I went to an Irish speaking secondary school. But if you did the leaving cert, especially if you did higher level, like you have probably a similar amount of vocab to me. And the big thing that I learned in school that was a big pillar of my Irish learning that made Irish one of my favorite classes was the fact that my teacher said, if you don't know how to say something, find a different way to say it. So a lot of my Irish, the reason I can speak Irish is not because I know the words for everything, but it's just I can find my way around it. I can figure out another way to say what I want to say. Um, so and there's also a lot of people in the scene who have an exemption from Irish. You know, I think the Smash scene, it's well known, and we have a lot of people with like neurodivergency and things like that. And I think one of the big things that you see very often is Irish is the first thing that's dropped. Um, but as the old phrase goes, you know, it's far Gaeilge a clista na Béarla, sorry, Gaeilge vrista na Béarla clista. Uh, which
Whereas,
means
whereas
it's better to have broken Irish than perfect English. I think if you just throw in a few words, if you do your best, like that's fine. You know, like I think really like the big thing about Irish that maybe can kills Irish is the kind of puritanical nature of like you need to be correct.
the
But if you go to
perfectionism.
the
Yeah.
Gaeltachts, like yeah, perfectionism. When you go to the Gaeltachts, no one is speaking full Irish. It's like you have in many other European countries. They're speaking Irish with some English mixed in. And I think people need to kind of demystify the language themselves and just be okay with saying if kupafuckle, throwing in a few things, and if you have to switch to English for a sentence or two, that's fine. But it's really more about giving it a go and not being too worried about it because if you're not like if you go give Irish Comstock a go and you don't speak that much Irish, that's okay because even a little bit of Irish you're speaking is going to be more than it would have been there if it was a full English comms block. So I think people should be more comfortable just giving it a go. That's what I'd say there. Um, in terms of the scene, you know, I think it's something that's unique to us. I think it's quite fun to do it. I think it's really nice. Um, I just think it's really nice for our culture and our kind of national pride, I guess, to do that a bit more, to show off our language, show off who we are. Especially, you know, so often in Smash scenes, people would think, "Oh, you're part of the UK, right?" Like I was at SAF, and the guy came up to me and was like, "I know Ireland," and then I was like, "Oh, what do you know about Ireland?" And he said, "Margaret Thatcher." And he wasn't so like I think it's just good to show like a little bit of who we are and where we come from. You know, I think that's what I love. Like Chowlook is called the way it is. You know, it's a really hard to pronounce Irish word, but it gets them thinking about us and who we are and our history, and I think that's really cool as well. So yeah, I think Irish comms are great. In terms of who I'd like to commentate with, um, no one I haven't already commentated with. I like commentating with my friends, John. A lot of my favorite memories are commentating with Tom Popstar. Me and Leo always have great blocks, things like that. Through the years, that's what I've really loved doing. So I wouldn't want to commentate with anyone else.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm sure that you'll be doing commentary with lots of people in the future anyway, and you'll find it many more people to commentate with. One thing that you mentioned there is only just thrown in like Kupla Focal just to like I'll be fully transparent. Irish was my worst subject. It was my only ordinary level, and I'd be terrified to commentate in Irish. But one thing that did come to mind is the most memorable Irish commentary for me was Ashling Verdance Anto Ledahull, which cracks me up every time. And even just throwing in a few of those would be good into an ordinary commentary block.
100%.
Yeah.
I remember there's a sheet in school that was like, here's how to text Oscar. You know, they're trying to be cool with the
Yes.
kids. It was a good cheat sheet. But I just think something like that could be quite good. Like, you know, like, because, like, you know, you might understand Spanish commentary for Smash, right? But if you hear vamos, you know what they're saying. You know, there's a lot of
Yes.
certain phrases that are just known. I think we could easily pick up some phrases, normalize some things to say that we'll all know they're the Irish. You know, like everyone in the scene basically knows overall shit of Ahawali at the song because it's
Hmm.
very simple. You just repeat that sentence 4 times with the chorus, whatever. So there's things like that you could easily teach everyone that could promote a bit of Kubafuckle in the scene. One of my biggest sadnesses is what became On the Run was meant to be Run It Back 3, which was the old Galway series before Walden and Wave Dash. But that was meant to be in Galway, not in Dublin, and it was meant to be an all Irish event at an Irish venue. And I was really, really enthusiastic about that to happen. Unfortunately, it didn't. But I know there's some Gael Gore hits there, especially in Cork, like the likes of Bev and Jazz, and formerly myself now, I guess. So I'm hoping at some point we get a bit of a Gaelga event going at some point. I think it's nice, and I think it about obviously a lot of it is just demystifying it, making feel like not making people feel like they shouldn't go if they can't speak Irish. You know.
Yeah. No. Unfortunate that that fell through with the All Irish event, but
Mhm.
yeah, I think showing interest, it also adds another kind of unique quality to our scene because obviously no other scene's going to be doing it in Irish. It's nice that we have people like Vlurk who've shown an interest in learning the language as someone who isn't Irish himself, but at this point essentially is part of the Irish scene. Um, but yeah, we'll talk about Ireland a bit more. You mentioned earlier your goal of visiting all the counties, and I know you've been a TO in venues all across the country. Are there
Mhm.
any venues or places you wish to go back to? Any counties or towns you wish you got to host a tournament in?
Um, I always love the Galway events. I'm really good at missing Mile Line Way Dash and Scratch Melee. That kills me. I always have a great time with the Galway lads. Um, I would love to do another have another regen. I don't know if they're going to happen. I mean, they might come back in some form in the future, but it won't be the same group of people, and I won't be playing the same game. I would love. Hmm. But I'd obviously love like this isn't on the card, but I would love to someday have another kingdom. I know that's my own event, but I just love having people in my neighborhood. So maybe in a few years' time we'll do like a Scummit or something in Kerry or something. I don't know. Because that seems like one. You're not going to come home. I'm not going to come home. Probably, I will see how long I last year, I guess. But I'm not going to come home for any old event. But if it's something like a Scummit, that's a reason to fly home, right? So, um, yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's those multi-day events that stick out to me. I think in my head, because that's when you make memories. That's when you have the time and the breathing room to for things to happen. For connections to be made. It's not just bracket in and out.
Yeah, no, I mean, like we've seen events in Glendalough, in Annalong, in Connemara. I don't think there's anywhere that we can't host an event at this point. If we're looking CRTs out to a hostel in Glendalough, it could be
Mm.
anywhere. So you can just pick any place you like to be on this island, and you'll be able to
Mm-hmm.
host a tournament there. But it does take a lot of manpower, so it's not something to take for granted.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd love to try some of these gimmick things like doing that Shannon cruise and trying to do a little bracket on that, or doing something like on the Aran Islands, or like doing like a scumma type thing, but in another country in Europe where it's really cheap and we all go on like a big holiday. Like these kind of ideas as well are excite me. So there's definitely a lot of potential to try some cool novel things, and we'll see in future, I guess, what happens.
Yeah, I think one thing, just before I get on to the next question, that we should keep in mind is that we should continue to expand the types of tournaments because it's worth trying, not necessarily gimmicks, but just going out there for different tournaments. Um, because I don't care where I have to travel to as long as, my people are there. It's going to be amazing. But I very much liked the remote places, even though they've been a pain to get to. I like the travel to Dublin. It's handy enough for me. But
Mhm.
it it's kind of the thing. I'm thinking about what you were saying earlier about how the multi-day events less approachable, but you make your proper friends there. I think the harder you make the place to get to, the more committed you are, and the more involved with the people you're going to be. Whereas, a one-day Dublin event, you'll show up, you'll play the game, and it's you clock in, you clock out. Whereas you're almost living with people, the harder the event is to get to. I think that's once you have enough people in your scene, the more, not making it insular, but making it a commitment can really help with that bonding.
Yeah, and I'm sure this is probably something that's going to come a bit more later, but like there's this weird push and pull of inclusivity versus solidifying your base. Um, and it's a very tough question to answer. Like a big thing I pushed during COVID in the ultimate scene was this idea of cruise culture, encouraging different people to form their own friend groups off separate to the main scene. Because I always thought people are always more likely to stick around in the scene and become long-term members if they have a friend group. They aren't just a member of the scene; they're a member of a group who are in the scene. Like the same way you have like now you have the IRC or like the 64 cool guys or whatever. You know, I think that's really beneficial, um, especially in a bigger scene because you need your people, you need the people who you're going to hang out with because to really make you motivated. One thing I noticed is when Tom Popstar moved to Berlin originally, he was like, he went to some events and he's like, I don't care about beating any of these people because what mattered was it was your friends, it was your people. These are the people that you know. I think it's going to be interesting, kind of teething pain or whatever for the meta scene now because meta scene has grown a lot and it's transitioned into that kind of more of the size of what the ultimate scene was.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have this issue of it's not necessarily one unified central scene as much anymore. It still is one scene, but it's definitely bigger and it's more spread out, which means certain nodes aren't as close to by as they would have been in previous times. And how you navigate that is how you navigate that is quite interesting. Um, especially to see certain in groups kind of getting their voices louder than others. We had this discourse, I suppose, recently with the topic of in jokes. It was something that came up, like maybe if you have a group and you have your own sense of humor, maybe you should have your own chat and chill out there, and then act more respectable in the main server. But on the other hand, like someone mentioned, for a lot of people the scene is the friend group, because a lot of people started in the scene a few years ago and they're used to all being one big friend group. So it's a tough question to answer, and I don't know the full answer to it. But I suppose the conclusion I came to during COVID, myself and a few of the guys, T.O.ing at the time, like Tom Hatcher, had a lot of discussion on this. I do think decentralizing the scene into like smaller scenes, like your Galway scene, your Cork scene, your Donegal scene, is quite beneficial. You need your day one. You need those people who are going to root for you in bracket. You need people in your corner. You need your friend group, because those are the people that will, beyond the scene, beyond Smash, continue to be your friends forever. So that will probably be my recommendation. But I know maybe it's a bit scary of a transition for a scene that is so used to being one group.
Yeah, I'll make my comment on
Grand,
that,
yeah.
but we'll probably get back to it later. The thing that I would have in mind there is that you want to find your balance, because if everyone goes and makes their own friend group, they're going to be hanging out there, and everyone who's left in the central hub are the people who haven't found a group, which makes it feel less involved. So I think, yeah, having your own space, but it's still encouraging the consistent use of the main space. That's the balance you're trying to find with a larger scene.
Yeah, it's quite tough because like we probably saw, like as well as I thought it worked in the Ultimate scene. Obviously, one of the big things in the Ultimate scene the last few years has been a big rift between two groups, and maybe if everyone was still using a central place, then maybe that rift wouldn't have happened. So yeah, it's quite a difficult balance to reach, and it's very hard to control any sort of culture in a community like this that's so big. So it's hard enough to control certain elements. Not a mind find a balance between two different directions. So it's a very interesting discussion. One thing I'm hoping to do when I'm here with my new free time, hopefully in Vienna, is I want to study a lot more about how communities and cultures are formed, because it's something I'm really interested in. I care a lot about community stuff, and I would love to get some insight on this from people with a bit more experience than me in different groups, and figure out how some rules of thumb to try and figure this out. Because I've been doing this for years, John, and I don't have all the answers. So yeah, it's interesting.
Fair enough. No, I'd definitely like you to keep me updated on that, because that does sound very, very interesting. I've got a long one now with a bit of preamble, so we'll get into that. So I believe that one of the best goals that you've ever kind of implemented in the Ultimate scene was your focus on outreach, especially in the earlier days, and I think that's what grew the scene so much, or at least a large part of it. You were getting as many people into the scene as possible, which is great. In my view, some of the most surefire ways to get people to stick around is to make them feel, one, loved, and two, make them feel useful. You can't really clinically plan for the first one. You kind of have to trust your community members. In my experience, it was someone like Snook who made me feel like I was a friend day one. I think people will cite, Bev and Daisy Moeller like as people now who are instantly make you feel like you're one of the friends now. So that would be for the first point. But to make them feel useful, I think getting them involved as quick as possible into not necessarily tournament organizing, but helping out with tournaments is a great plan. Do you have any suggestions or ideas for how established TOs can get newer players or newer members to feel involved as soon as possible, rather than just a player in a bracket?
God, John, I have so many things to say right now.
Please
I'm
do.
not going to get to all of them, and I'm going to regret it. I'm going to start with the love point first, because I think it's something that is probably a smaller part of this. And it's not a smaller part, but it's I have less to say rather. I think that's really important. I think trusting community members is really big. I want to shout someone right now, the Greg. The Greg has a reputation. Some people, he's not ever like different people have different thoughts on Greg, but Greg's one of my longest friends. I think Greg has been really amazing at this for years. Greg is always in a scene that sometimes needs to be a bit insular, needs to certain needs to have a bit of a shield up at sometimes to kind of safeguard ourselves from bad cultures. I think Greg has always been someone who's been very egalitarian. He's been very he wants everyone to feel welcome, even some of his more controversial moments, like the Team Greg group, which were a bit notorious back in the day. His whole thesis with that group is he wanted to have a group where everyone could join. And actually, a lot of people who were in Team Greg are like long-standing members of the community, like Silver Bullet, like Galaxy AJ, like Noah Star. Like Greg gave a place for new people in the scene who didn't have a friend group yet to join a group that everyone could join, and it was open doors. And Greg's always been really good for that. Greg's always that guy I've noticed in the past at events. He would talk to the new O2er. He would talk to the person who isn't playing anyone and sit down and play friendlies with them for an hour. So I think things like that are really amazing. Just asking someone to play friendlies, hanging out, chatting away. Those things are fantastic. So shout out to all the people who make an effort to make people feel welcome. If you are feeling shitty at Smash Tournament, I do recommend just talking to someone new, welcoming them, having some friendlies. I think it's a really good thing you can do. Something I've always felt bad because I never do myself because I always find a way to be too busy to be able to do that. But yeah, so shout out to that. Shout out to Greg. Shout out to everyone else who makes people feel welcome in the scene. It's really amazing. Next, the other point was making people feel useful. So I've talked about this in so many ways. First, I need my big overarching speech, and then we'll talk maybe about specifics. I think there's specifics I wanted to respond to from your points. Maybe I'll ask you to rephrase it in a bit or re-say it. Sorry, but the first thing I want to say is a community. The community is not something that happens to you. This isn't a movie that you go to watch in the cinema. The Smash isn't the thing you go pay a ticket and come into. It's a community. You are a member, same way I'm a member. Just because I'm a TO doesn't give me any more authority than you. We are all, this isn't a formal body. This isn't an organization. We are all part of the scene and we all have a responsibility in this scene. And if you are willing to contribute to the scene, that is going to make you feel so much better in the scene. You're going to enjoy it so much more when you are not just someone who the events happen to, but you are a part of the events. So I would encourage everyone to find their little niche of some things they can do. And it doesn't have to be a TO. It can be, you see Froggy recently. Froggy's also already a player and he already coaches everyone in the scene. That's already enough for him, you know? But he's been doing these videos. You've seen the events recently. And like the last one he did at Gone Fishing wasn't even for his org. He just made a video about who's one person that you love in the scene. And these kind of things are fantastic. You know, some people just help transport equipment on the day. Some people just help the TO when they're busy and call sets. Some people do graphics, some people do trailers, some people do streaming, some people do commentary, some people just, like we said before, make new players feel welcome, talk to them. Some people give Vince cigarettes when he's really stressed and he doesn't have any. Things that, you know, there's so many ways you can be positive in the scene. So find something you can do and do it, is what I would say. The next point I want to make is that's what's so amazing with the Smashing. What's so amazing with Smashing is there's so many different things you can do. You know, you can do a coding project, you can do commentary, you can do graphics, you can do video editing, you can do streaming, you can do T.O.ing, you can do advertising, you can do budgeting, you can do a million other things that I'm not thinking of right now. But there's so many ways to be a part of this scene and to contribute and be an active member. I think that's one of the things that sets Smash apart from some other communities that are kind of similar in that space. I think it's really beautiful how, because we're always in person, there's actually a lot of different jobs to be done. So I would encourage people, you know, to find niches because they do exist. And if you can't think of it, like, here's an example. Sane made the Amis belt. This is kind of a forgotten fact. I didn't know. I've forgotten that he made the belt. And he just spent a night doing that up, making it together, laughing the whole time. And that belt is a institution in this scene. It's so amazing. It's made Ami so much more hype. It's so good. The winner always gets a little photo. It's created so many great memories. And that was a one night thing that he did one time. So there's ways. Like if you guys get a whim, any idea of something you could do for the scene, just do it. And don't look for approval to do it. Don't go thinking like, oh, should I do this? Should I ask? And ask a TO what they think on this. Just do something, just do it. You know, I think the biggest thing that set me apart from as like a TO, of why I became a big TO, is not that I was particularly talented at any one thing, but it was the fact that I was willing to do it. It was the fact that I was willing, without being asked, without being told to do it, I was willing to be proactive and just do it. And that's, I think, the biggest skill to getting more involved in this scene. So that's what I'd encourage everyone to do. Just think of something you can do to help out. It could be showing up to the venue 2 hours early or an hour early and just helping with setup. It can be a lot of things. There's a lot of simple things you can do. And if you need ideas of ways to help out more, think I want to help out more, chat to a TO, chat to us in general. We can give you some ideas of things you like to do. And like you see often, like Tom Popster now works full time doing art, and he started that career doing graphics for the Smash scene. And now he's able to sustain himself on a living on that. So it can really stand to your career. Like I know so many people who I put down as their reference in their CV for jobs. Like these skills are not just helping you be part of the scene, but they also help you grow as a person. They can help you push yourself, and they're fun because this isn't a job. You're not going to get in trouble if you don't do it. So yeah, that's my spiel. There's more I wanted to say about the getting involved thing, John. But yeah, those are two big rambles for you.
Yeah, I'll comment on that because I had a chat with Vlurk yesterday. It was one-sided in the sense that he was muted and I was in VC, but the one side of it is there's definitely room for people to be more creative. Like if you want to take a picture of an event and then like paint it or draw it, like that would be so cool. If you want to make like a cinematic thing out of it, you could. If you want to create something, if you want to make music about an event, like go for it. Just make things. If you want to make vlogs, please do. I really wish more people did that. I stopped doing it for my own reasons, but I just want more people to make stuff. Make.
Mm.
I originally phrased it as monuments. That sounded a bit big because I was talking about vlogs, but making mementos for the community that aren't just moving cables and TVs necessarily. That's super
Yeah.
important and useful, and please do that. Like if you want to be helpful on the day, go up to a busy looking TO and say, "I'm going out for food. You want me to pick up something for you?" Like you'll instantly
Yeah.
be best friend. Like you can do that.
100%. And yeah, like your video vlogs are a great thing where everyone started making videos, and that was a really cool thing for the scene. There's also like photography and things like that as well. There's so many amazing ways you can help out in the scene. Um, One thing, and like yeah, like you said, like you mentioned music there. Like there was an idea we had for Child last year, it didn't end up happening, but that we'd get like an Irish music group to play during top eight in the room. Like you could play some music at an event, just do some little, for top eight, maybe have just a bit of music. That could be cool. I remember once Sophie was gonna knit a trophy for
Oh, that's
one of
sick.
the running backs. It didn't end up happening, I don't think, but like there's things, or like another time that like Sophie and Evan made like custom Pokemon cards for all the players for the comic PR. Like there's so many ways you can just find a way to do something cool for the scene. So yeah, just be open to it, be looking for it, and yeah, and then yeah, like you said, John, people are gonna love you for it. It's gonna really help establish you in the scene. People are gonna be appreciative, and it's gonna create some memories. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah, one more thing to kind of loop back to earlier. You were talking about side events that don't overrun bracket time, like that don't require you to be present for a set amount of time. I think if you want to do things that people are involved in, do it like that. Again, bring a frisbee, bring a football, bring whatever. Just do things, and then that gives you a chance to say, also, this is my name, and I'm new here, or I'm established here. Yep, they bring the hurley. Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's, I think the kind of lesson there from that question is there's so many ways that you can help out that aren't just I'm going to run a tournament or I'm going to run a bracket. Which
Mhm.
again, those are super useful, and I don't want to say that people shouldn't do those. Of course, they need to be done. It's just it's not the only way because the community is so much more than playing the game. I think that with the next question, we'll kind of get into more of the specifics. So I'll move on to that if you don't have anything else that you'll say on that
No, sounds good.
specifically.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So for a long time in the Ultimate scene, everything seemed to happen through you, and since then we've seen more people step up into the T.O.ing role. Are there any gaps that you see in the current lineup of roles that you think should be filled more, like whether it's streaming or commentating or bracket running, scheduling, treasury, like just specific roles that you think people should look into more that would boost either the Ultimate or Melee scene?
Yeah. So I guess I'm gonna give you some more bit of context first, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came into the scene, it was basically like Anto and Olton were basically running everything, and then they both retired, and then I kind of stepped up. I mean that's a very grossly simplified version of the thing. I was kind of TO as well at the time beforehand, but separately and whatever. But we have a bit of history, and you see a lot of things this happens where one person does everything, and that leads to burnout, leads to people stopping. I remember I went to I was in one of the region events before, and some guy was like, "Oh, we're over in this region of England. we've got a really small team. And they were talking about a 48-person event, and they had like an 8-person team, and he called it a small team. And I was like, dog, like we're killing ourselves out here, like working so hard, and somewhat often unhealthily. So I think this is another reason why it's important to get involved. Like, TOs do burn out. There's TOs in the scene right now who are burning out. We've seen a lot of TOs retire, and obviously there's a lot of reasons for that, not just one. But making the TO, like, by helping out and by taking on jobs that are already being done, you can enable bigger and greater things in your scene, because you can let the people who are more experienced work on bigger things and more macro level stuff. I think that's really important for sustaining our TOs, because our TOs are the lifeblood of the scene. If there's no TOs running events, there's no artists getting paid, there's no streamers getting paid, there's no events for players to go to. You need the TOs. They're the most fundamental pillar. And there's a lot of TOs in the scene right now who are doing thankless work and sometimes getting criticism. And all they do, like some people just do thankless work, show up every day. Like to give an example of someone who's great, two people who are great, and I'm not saying these people get criticism, I'm just giving examples. BP and Daniel Average come to every crackdown, bring all the equipment. So they're not running their own big events with the big flashy poster and all these things where everyone claps for them at the end. They just show up every fucking event. Monty as well. And Monty did Gone Fishing, of course. These people just show up and do their work thanklessly, So these are people that are the kind of the lifeblood of the scene. And anything we can do to make their lives easier, we should be doing. And in terms of gaps, John, there's a lot. I'm not gonna kid you on that. Like, there's, we have one dedicated streamer for Melee. We basically have one dedicated streamer for Ultimate. Galway has a stream, I think, for Ultimate, and there's a small Melee stream, but they're not. It's being done by people who are also T.O.ing, so it's like what they can get up. Obviously, it's like we could use a lot more streamers. I think there was a period post-COVID where every scene in Ireland had a strong stream presence. Like, everyone was wearing a stream, everyone's using Streamer Stream Helper. And I think that's kind of lessened recently as Monty became more focused on the Melee side, and a few people stepped back from Ultimate Team, like Hammer and myself and,
as well, yeah.
and yourself. Exactly, and yourself. And I think in the Melee scene, it just wasn't the precedent from the beginning, because Melee scene maybe is a bit older, so there wasn't that precedent. Same way it wasn't the Ultimate scene before COVID. There wasn't necessarily the standard of always having a stream. And I think Monty coming into the Melee scene is what really emboldened the Melee scene to have more streams. But now it's just Monty. So that's a big gap. I would say, just in general, like someone like Bev, he can't do everything. He can't be running an event in Donegal and Cork and Chowlook. So I think he's kind of setting this up, but he's setting up Ina now to be the full head of Forgotten Face Off next year, and he's kind of pushing Jules and Jade now to step Cork. So that's really good. So doing that in your local scene, some examples of that is Olsen is running XGC 2.0, but I know his plan from the beginning there has been to hand that off. But I notice he still hasn't handed it off. I'm not saying putting that on any particular person. What I'm saying is that people can step up to make other TOs' lives easier. So people should do that. And I think the reason why I'm saying this, and I'll go back to more specific jobs you can help with shortly, because I think I need to talk about some of those maybe, but what you saw in the Ultimate scene, maybe after a while, is that because there are so many great TOs, you had the likes of Gabe and Odie, and then Pascal and stuff, and Monty in the north. You had, Evan, Galaxy, EJ, and Emmett in the west. In the south, you had myself and Sam. We had all these people who were amazing TOs. And I think there almost grew a complacency. We had so many events and so many great people working on them that when those people started to retire, with this whole new generation of people that didn't realize they needed to step in, I would say. So it's that whole phrase, Tom said this to me during the week, but it's, that whole thing of hard times create good men create good times make weak men create hard times. I know that's very cheesy, but I think that became a thing. There's a certain point in the Ultimate scene where it stopped being, oh my God, thank you for the event. And it became, oh, there's a lot of problems at that event, and people are like, oh, why would I go to that event? That event has problems. Whereas, the reason I always ran FGC at Kingdom, for example, is those guys wouldn't have many events. Every single time I ran FGC Kingdom, they'd be like, oh my God, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This is so special. I think, and this is something I'm worried about happening to the meta scene, is once you get to, once you had this big boom, you can reach a level of complacency where it becomes less special to go to Donegal or to go to Athlone or wherever, and people start being like, "Oh, will I go to that?" And that is just being a lot of events. But you can create this kind of thing where people become, instead of it being special that things are happening, it becomes more of an expectation. And you can create a bit of complacency that things already happen around you without you doing anything. So maybe you don't feel like you need to step in as much. And I think it's really important that we try and encourage everyone to step up, because if people keep stepping up like the way they have been in the last year medicine, then we could run a massive major in a few years if you wanted to. Like actually something massive. If we really wanted to, like level one at 340 people, we can run I think if we really put our heads to it, we could run a 500-person Smash only major in a few years. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I think that's totally possible in Ireland if we wanted to do it. So like just because things are going well doesn't mean you shouldn't step up. You should be stepping up. You should be helping out where you can. So that's what I'd say on that. So yeah, more streamers is really good. It's not hard to use the software. It's not hard to sit on the laptop and change the scenes and put in the scores. Like just have someone show you once, it'd be fine. Bringing a lab to events that can do the reporting of the sets, really good. Doing photography events. I know that we have commissioned photography for actual things, but if you just do some of your own photography events, I know you might get paid for it. Maybe you'll get free entry from that. But even if not, having an album is something that everyone appreciates after the event. And then once you do it a few times, you might build a bit of a reputation, and then maybe you'll get commission more often. Um, Doing things like help, God, if you have a car, please help us transport equipment. That is the biggest logistical challenge for a TO anywhere. There's that one funny meme where it's like, who all the girls go for in the community, and it's like top players no, TOs no, and the top, all the arrows from the girls are pointing at one tour with a car. Like that is so true. I remember when Dimitri, who used to be a top ultimate player, came into the scene. We had this running joke where it's like, oh, he's a really nice guy and he has a car, and we were saying like, oh yeah, we were trying to get him into the scene and really kind of like
Yeah.
coax him in. And it was obviously he was a really nice guy, and that was a big part of the reason. But it's also like he has a car. And
Yeah.
we didn't even end up using his car that much, but it was just like that means a lot to us
And he
TOs,
was number one anyway. Yeah. No,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely. There was something I had to say on that, but I forgot what it was. Yes, so the way I think about this is um, until pretty recently in human history, everyone was involved in food production in one way or another, whether it's hunting
Mm,
or agriculture. And only because of how crazy the world's gotten in the last few hundred years, most people don't have to be involved in food production. I think that's what's happened with the Smash scenes, is where when you're like, if the tournaments are very small, you only need one person to run it because they're tiny. But once they grow
mhm.
a bit, you need multiple people to run them because they just don't happen unless there's multiple TOs. But I think new players have gotten so used to the idea that you go to Tesco to buy your food, you just go to the tournament to play the game, that you need to be involved in tournament organizing. Unless, like, exception for new players who just, are new to the scene, we're not going to expect them to have a role, where they
Mhm.
don't have to feed themselves. But it should be, I think, culturally an expectation that you have some sort of tournament organizing role. You bring a dish to the picnic, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think you're 100% right, and I loved your point about the food production thing. It is that modern society thing. Like 50 years ago, if your car broke, you could fix it. You change your tire. Everyone could change their tire. Everyone could change their lights. Everyone could change the electrics in their house. Everyone could fix their door. Everyone could sew their clothes back together. And nowadays, we live in a world where it's easier to throw something away or send it back to the manufacturer or just buy a new one than it is. We've been separated from,
Send it back to Monty. Yeah.
yeah, but we've been separated from, I guess, not to go all fucking Marxist, but like the means of production have become so obfuscated. Everything is I'm trying. There's a word I'm trying to think of, and I can't think of it. But we're so separate. Like you
The
work for a company
isolationist.
now,
Yeah.
yeah, like you work for a company now, and you don't know what the product is. You don't know where you are in the food chain. You just know you do this one specific thing, and you have no end to end idea of what you're a part of and what you're building at the end. That you can feel, oh, I'm so glad we did this. And one of the beautiful things about Smash is we still have that. There still is an end product that's an event that we can feel proud of. Um, so yeah, it's 100%. Yeah, this is a great
Yeah.
point. Thanks, John.
Yeah, so I think the call to action is just get involved in some way, whether it's
Mhm.
creative or organizational, or just, asking someone if you can pick up food for them, doing, or can I carry Mater down the stairs? Um,
Yeah,
because,
and
yeah, it'll help everyone.
100%. And I just want to say as well, like, I a bit of normalization by some certain people on publicly criticizing events. And I get that events deserve criticism sometimes. But at the end of the day, some people, and these people I hate the most in the scene. I don't hate anyone, but some people treat it like they're a customer and this is like a service. And it's like, bro, if I was Ticketmaster, you're not getting a refund. You can't even talk to a customer support person anymore. You're getting put through to a fucking AI agent. You know, like we are not a product that you're buying. Okay, you're not like the we. This is a community that you were also part of the community. So start thinking of it that way, not as a thing that you're like, oh, is it worth my money? So people are very like leaving reviews and events like, oh, this was really badly managed. This was a really shitty organized thing. And I'm like, what's their problem? This is something that people are working on and putting their heart and soul into, and they're just there like, oh, that was kind of shitty. And it's like, fuck off. And sorry, I'm getting a bit selective here, but it's a culture that's grown recently. I don't like it. Like, I'm gonna maybe advocate moving forward that maybe we start normalizing feedback forms for like series and specific events,
Yeah,
and then like at least then, okay, there you can leave your feedback. But publicly criticizing events, I, like I get it. If the TOs aren't listening to your feedback and you said it before and nothing's changing, then fair enough. Maybe you need to like raise it with more people and then maybe eventually it's go public. But I don't know. People are very Twitter brain. People think they need to make a public statement about something. Like you can talk to people, and if that person isn't being receptive, talk to someone else. You know, or take action yourself and fix the problem that you see.
that's exactly it.
People,
Yeah.
yeah, like people. There's been a normalization of criticism, which I don't like. Because at the end of the day, this is a community. This is a friend group in many ways, and I just go around just like trying shade at people like that is so unhealthy. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about the Messi when I first came in. And after every event, everyone was like, I had an amazing time. They did the big write ups. They thanked everyone who they hung out with the weekend. That kind of culture is beautiful. And we used to have that in those we've seen for a long time. And I think it kind of got lost along the way. So, yeah, that's something I want to see stop.
Yeah, I'll add one thing to that. I know that I've been guilty of criticizing events publicly like that, but I've always tried to maintain the thing of, is there an avenue for me to help out with it? And in the case of Crackdown, which was my most recent one that I had criticized, yes. And it's not an inherent issue. It's something that can be solved.
Mm,
Bringing it up privately to TOs, probably the best way to do it.
yeah,
I remember saying something about the scheduling and publicly, which, I do regret, but I don't disagree with what I said. I think the thing is, it's like, well, the food that we grew as a community this year tastes terrible. Okay, how can I help in making it better? I'm not just going to go starve.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And this is what I want to encourage, Um, and yeah, there's nothing more to say. I'm not going to hammer up the point, but
That's fair. I mean, for the last question of this section, it might get a bit controversial, but we'll see anyway. So in the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of Ultimate players migrate over to the Melee scene. Do you think it's just
mm.
because of the game? And are there any qualities the Ultimate scene could learn from the Melee scene and vice versa? I would like one from each if possible.
um, yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people. I
Likewise.
think, I think, I think a lot of people, a lot of these melee purists. I'm gonna go on a rant against melee for a second because obviously I'm on the melee side now. So um, there's a lot of melee purists who love to dunk on ultimate and love to be like, oh look, melee's got more entrants than ultimate now. Oh look, the ultimate scene is dying. Oh look, oh the ultimate players are gonna abandon their game for the new Smash game. Wow, 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 wow. Like a lot of people, a lot of melee people think they're better, and I think it's a bit unearned. I think it's fair to criticize the ultimate scene if you're in the ultimate scene and evolved a bit, but I don't like people who weren't a part of it just throwing a shade because ultimate scene is a really beautiful thing. We've done a lot of amazing things. We built so much of the infrastructure that the scene is built off of today, like Galway weeklies, Big Fish, Crackdown. All these things came from the ultimate infrastructure and years of hard work by ultimate TOs. I think there should be appreciation there. That's my big rant. Um,
Yeah.
Sorry, I've kind of gotten away from the question. The question was about.
I
I
can
know you wanted
repeat
to
if
say
you
one
wish.
quality from each, but what was the initial question before the one quality from
So the migration, do you think it's just because of the game, or do
each?
you think there's anything else there?
I think the scenes are inherently linked. So not everyone likes to think that, but I think they are inherently linked. I think you see a lot of Belfast players trying it out. That's because Monty is on the Ultimate TO team there in Big Fish, and Big Fish is an Ultimate slash Melee local. So it makes sense people cross over. I think it also makes sense because Melee's had this huge new influx of players, and there's a lot of new events happening, a lot of exciting things happening. It makes sense people would get interested in that to come over. I also think that the ultimate scene has developed a bit of a culture that unfortunately some people don't like to engage with. And I know some people like that culture and they're very defensive of that culture, but I think unfortunately a lot of people have stepped back because they just don't like the vibes sometimes anymore. I know there's a lot of good people making changes to that. I know there's a lot of amazing people still in the ultimate scene. Shouts to the likes of like Eddie and like Emmett and
Huge
things like
love to
this.
Eddie. Love that guy so much.
Amazing people. Um, so there is a lot of people doing great work there. But sometimes it's nice to go to the shiny new toy. I also think there's a lot of people who, through recent drama, maybe don't get along with certain people in the ultimate scene, so they feel more akin at the meta side of things. I think, um, yeah, and there's a lot of reasons, and I think a lot of people played meta. Like Thomas Keys, I was talking to him like Dugas, why he was at the weekly, why he was at the last crackdown. He's like, oh, for Greg's birthday bash, which you can think of that as like Scummit, but for Ultimate during in like 2020, like at Greg's birthday bash, there's a melee bracket. We just ran one because we like melee, even though it was an ultimate event. And he just practiced a bunch for that because Sepia just came out, and so he already liked melee. So one day Thomas Keys said, "I'll try melee." Especially when you haven't played Smash in a bit, it's nice to come in and play a new Smash game. The same way when Smash 6 or whatever it is comes out, a bunch of melee players will try that out and come to some events just to give it a go. Same way a bunch of the Smash 4 players will give it a go as well. So that's what I'd say. I think I don't think people are switching over to Melee because it's so much of a better game. I think people who play Ultimate like Ultimate. Obviously, I will should talk on Ultimate a lot and how it's played, but we played Ultimate for years and we enjoyed it. It's not just that. I think Melee is a really good game. As a newcomer, I really like Melee as a game. It's amazing, but yeah, I think there's a lot more to it. That's what I'd say. I'd say for maybe one or two people, it's maybe the game, but other than that, I would say no.
Yeah, one of my biggest pet peeves because I think that you know I prefer my time right now in the melee scene, and I feel like the ultimate scene could learn a lot from that. But to kind of point the other way, the melee players who have not invested any significant time into ultimate can't be shit talking the game. Like, yeah, you're right, it sucks, but you're not right. It's my game that sucks, not yours.
Yeah,
And one thing I don't like seeing is some of the melee heads happy about the downfall of the ultimate scene in some
yeah.
ways. It's like, well, you wouldn't want that to happen to us, and we're some of the same people. Like I'll happily shit talk the game, and you're right that it's bad, but don't wish ill on the community because they find the same things there as we find here. As if I'm talking about it as if I'm only a melee player, but I am an ultimate player as
Yeah,
well.
it's like what they say. Like I guess in like a lot of like African American culture, like you're shooting your own self. Like that's your brother. That's you. You know what I mean? Like we are inherently the same. We're as similar as could be in terms of what we are. We're a Smash Bros game that has in-person events locally. We're so alike, and I think and a lot of amazing things for good reason have been said about the melee scene recently. But what people don't realize is how amazing the Ultimate scene was. How many amazing events you ran in
And
Ultimate. How
still
many
is in
amazing
many
people,
regards, despite
and
any
still is
issues. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. There's so many like there's people who are sweethearts like your Ruse. Like you have like your Eddies, you have your Oriasons, you have your Dan 2Ds, you have your Hammers, you have like these hyper competent TOs like your Joshes or your Ultimates, like you have like your Sams or like obviously Pascal or your Evans or your Emmets. You have your funny people, you like Pat and Sean our daddy, or you have there's so many amazing people. I could talk at a length for like but all the people that I love in the ultimate scene. And they're amazing. And I hope some of you guys got to meet some of them at Gone Fishing, for those of you who gone fishing. But yeah, it's us. It's just us in another jacket, and uh, there's no reason why you can't hang out and make friends with people on the ultimate side at these joined events because it's the same shit, man. Same
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, it's
It's
so many more similarities than differences. Like it's good to try to take the good qualities from one, but it's the type of us versus them that we've seen enough of within a singular one of those scenes that you don't want to see it between scenes.
Yeah. In terms of things to take from each scene, I think the obvious one I'm going to say that Ultimate can learn from Melee is that kind of positivity culture, that kind of practicing gratitude, being appreciative, being wholesome. And I think also maybe Melee with something I tried to do in Ultimate and failed was to try and force trying to ban certain behaviors. And I think maybe what's something that the Melee scene does well, I think I've noticed is instead of just setting a rule or something like that, just telling someone off, being like, fuck
Don't be
off.
at it.
Don't be at it. Like you're in the bull corner when someone's being a prick. I think vibe banning probably needs to be more of a thing. You need to just like if people are being a bit of a prick and they're skirting the line on purpose, it needs to be like fuck off. And it's like being in the community is a privilege, not a right. So we need to just be maybe a bit more comfortable telling people off when they're not behaving well because everyone else, 99% of people behave really well. So if you're not behaving well, then that's a you problem. It's not, it's not that. In terms of what Melee could learn from Ultimate, I would say, So, I mean, I think there's so many amazing things about Ultimate Team because I was there from the beginning, and I think not this isn't the point yet, but I'll cheekily say Melee has already taken so much from the Ultimate scene because the Melee scene kind of got quiet for a while. When Ulton stepped back and Josh and Rue stepped back for a while, and there were some things at the BOEBs things like that, but it was kind of a lot of the new infrastructure came out of the Ultimate side of things, like your Monties came up with that pipeline and things like that. And I think a lot of that infrastructure of like using German Stream Helper and things like that all came from the Ultimate side of things. So I would argue that there already is a lot coming from the Ultimate side of things. I've already talked about this. I'm not going to repeat all the things. I think we kind of talked about this earlier, but I think maybe the emphasis the Ultimate scene had on decentralization and cruise culture. Now, we'd already talked about maybe there's a bit of a limit to that, but I think encouraging people to make friends outside of the scene and form close connections is really good. In terms of just for your life, making long-term friends that even if you stop playing the game, because there will be a day, and I hate to say it, but there will be a day people playing Melee, and there'll be a day people move on their lives, they'll move country, and they'll do something like that. And I think it's really important that we get something long-lasting out of it, outside of just the memories. And I think building long-term friendships is a really important part of that. So I'd encourage people, the same way the Ultimate has, those kind of building those friendships, those groups, and that kind of encouragement of that, I think is a really strong element of the Ultimate scene that is done well for years. And also, actually, I've got another one.
Okay, yeah.
Ultimate events have always been really good for supporting other games, supporting smaller games. And you see this with the FGC scene, right? The FGC scene they'll have these big events and there'll be the new FGC game and it'll run and that will keep the scene going. That will keep the big event going, your Celtic Throwdowns. And then they'll still have brackets for the other games that aren't just new anymore. And they keep the scene alive for each game by using the new game to fuel the entrance for the big event. And that was amazing. And I think, like I've already talked about, that happened a lot in the last few years where there isn't much as many Melee events, but so many events for Ultimate, we ran Melee. So I'd encourage some Melee TOs to be brave enough that if there's a local Ultimate player in your scene, a few Ultimate players, if there's an Ultimate TO, someone's willing to bring some monitors, run an Ultimate bracket at your regional. Like, why not? If you're trying to get your numbers up, especially with so many Melee events now, so we can get more entrants, get more people, and get more people who also might be willing to help you with the event. Because if you have someone who's willing to help you out at your event, that's going to make your life easier too. There's a lot of really people who want to do more Ultimate stuff right now, but it needs to be built up. So I would encourage that as well. So yeah, that's what I would say. I would like to see more Melee people running other games and supporting other smaller scenes at their events.
Yeah, just to comment on that last one, definitely kind of the thing I had in mind was Melee scene needs to stop hating on other games, specifically Ultimate.
Yeah.
You're not better just because you pick a different game. Melee sucks, and you all know it. It sucks in certain ways. It's beautiful, of course, but
Yeah.
also, yeah, you to kind of tie running other events alongside it as well as streaming together. If you believe in the Melee scene half as much as Vince or I do, you want as many people to see it as possible.
Mm.
And that involves taking people who aren't necessarily interested in the game straight away and putting them in the same presence as you, or letting people see it on a stream. Uh, kind of getting that cross connection. Because yeah, I think that's pretty much what I have to say on that. And for the other one, yeah, I think if you are um, going to have your more insular friend groups, which I'm not against, I think my people are the kinds of people who generally use the Melee server anyway publicly. Don't forget that that's where you would have met, and to spend time there, part of hanging out with your friends isn't always you're at one of their houses. You're going to be in the pub, you're going to be out, wherever in a public place, not just spending time in private together.
100%. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Very good. I think that's it for talking just about the scenes there. Um, just a little bit at the end, a couple of more questions anyway. Going to talk about kind of other interviews or other things of this medium. So in Froggy's latest video, he was interviewing people at Gone Fishing 2. You gave, I believe it was Monty, a shout out as your favorite member of the scene. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that here, and maybe shout out a couple other people with the extra time you have?
How long do you have, Tom, John?
I start work at 3, so go ahead.
What time we at?
Uh,
Okay, let's 2.5 hours. Here we go. No, yeah, I mean, I love Monty. Um, like I said in that video, there was that week he did 6 weeks straight of like events. He was doing like level 1 and BYOB and bigger fish. And I think it was probably salmon run, which was like the kind of invitational thing, and big fish that Gabe used to run. Things like this. Um, Ty is just really selfless. Like Ty just wants to do the work and do it well, and he just sits down and doesn't ask for anything and doesn't really even play bracken much anymore. Just gets the job done, no complaints, not no questions asked. Just is a master of what he does, and he's such a sweetheart. I love him so much. He gave me this Wii I have over here just for free. So yeah, I love Ty so much, and I think we could use like so many more ties. But I also think people like Ty need support to make their lives easier. Like obviously, I think Ty's quite particular. He wants to run his stream the way he wants to run his stream. But you could be the guy who goes over and gets the next set ready for stream. So like, at tournaments, we used to have this before when I used to run the As one things, which became Crackdown eventually. There was a lot of things in between.
mm-hmm.
But we would have a dedicated person who just communicated between the streamer and the players, and they'd be like, okay, you guys don't play, wait for stream, and have them sit up the front so they're ready for the next stream set when the stream's on, to keep it going faster and quicker and smoother. So you could be someone who fetches players, fetches commentators, and communicates between the streamer and the TOs. And that's the way you can support Ty. You could help him transport equipment. You could print out pronoun sheets for the players, different things like that. Other people to shout out. My FGC boys. These are the people, the team I ran level 1 on Odyssey with. Like Tom Popstar would have been my confidant, guy to ask any of my questions to, the guy I bounced all my ideas off of. He was really influential with things at the Ultimate scene. Like he was there for all of that, being like a sounding board for me to figure out how I wanted to TO. So I couldn't have done without him. Thomas Keys Dulgas is never no complaints asked kind of guy. Will do whatever you ask him really well. Love Thomas and really happy to see him attending events again. I've already shouted out Greg. Greg does a lot of thankless work in the scene, a lot of low key work people don't realize to make people feel welcome and included. And I know there's been some controversy Crackdown recently about the quality of them, but I think what Greg did for Crackdown was really smart in terms of creating a minimum viable product monthly. Because like I talked about before, with the history in the scene of certain TOs doing everything and getting burned out, and I think Crackdown is a miracle in the sense that Crackdown is an event series that kind of runs itself without a central TO, which has its obvious issues, but it's a miracle that there's an event in the Academy Plaza every single month, and it runs every time. And it has problems, sure, but it's for the first time ever we have an event without a central TO. It's a very democratized event, and like obviously there's chinks, there's things to be ironed out there, but I think it's a miracle, honestly. So shouts to Greg there on that as well. I want to shout out Evan, Gags, EJ. I want to shout out Emmett. I want to shout out Sam. I want to shout out Ronan, my OG co-TO, Ronan Murray, Ronnie, who helped run the first Kingdoms with me. I want to shout out Hammer. I want to shout out all the other people of other scenes I've worked with through the years. Like the FGC scenes, like the Pokemon scenes, things like this. I want to shout out Rue, Alton, Josh. I want to shout out Bev, Jules, Jade. I want to shout out. Oh God, John, I've named too many people now, and now if I don't mention someone, it's going to be an insult. I want to shout out you, John.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, I want to shout out every single person who's helped out through the years. And I'm going to stop now, not because I can't name more people, but that the more I name, the worse it is when I don't name people. You know, you can probably tell there I was going through a map in my head. I was like, oh, Rue, and then
Yeah, all
Alton, and
around the
then Josh.
country.
And then I was
Yeah,
kind of like going. So it's purely me going through the map in my head and whatever, just listing names off. So I'm so sorry if I didn't mention your name there, guys. There's so many people I want to shout out. So many amazing people who've made this scene so special. And not just the TOs, it's the people, it's the personalities. It's it's everyone. So thank you so much to everyone for making the scene what it is. Because like I was saying earlier, we are all the scene. The scene isn't the TOs or the streamers. The scene is every single one of us. Even if you've only been to one event, the scene is you as well. Even if you just hang out in VC sometimes, you are the scene as well. So thank you to everyone.
exactly. Very good. So I think I talked about this maybe last week a little bit. So I
Oh, I
own a
said
copy.
much about Pascal. Sorry, I need to say Pascal as well because he'd be very upset at me if
Yeah,
I
you
didn't say
mentioned
much.
his work a few times anyway, so shout out
Yeah,
to Pascal.
yeah.
Yeah, so I own a copy of Conor Makar's Fighting Ireland, which you were interviewed for. What was
Yeah.
that like? And did you ever have any other interviews of this sort other than today and that?
Yeah, I mean that was pretty cool. Just having an interview, having myself be a chapter in the book, quite cool. I must see if I still have the book somewhere. If not, I need
I have
to
it
do a
in
copy.
Carlo, I know that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got interviewed. He was doing basically a book on the history of the Irish fighting game scene, and I was kind of there to give the Smash perspective, and I was trying to give an idea of the scope and the scale of the Smash scene. Now, the Smash scene is kind of a different beast, kind of related, but not like we're like cousins with the FGC, maybe like we're like first cousins, but maybe we're not directly the same. So it was only maybe a small part of the book, but obviously there's so much more to tell of the scene, which we saw in Josh's first episode of the documentary last year. Which, by the way, I hope Josh keeps making that documentary. And that's kind of a nice segue into the other time I was interviewed John, which was at my second kingdom ever. So this is my first kingdom I ran was in secondary school, and then I went to college and I started running. I ran one or two events in Trinity with my friends, and then I went back when Ultimate came out. Ultimate came out in December. I came back in January for my birthday. I ran Kingdom 2. So it was one of the first Ultimate events before Schism 3 or anything like that. And Deadeye Dave was at the first Kingdom, and he also went to Kingdom 2. And Deadeye Dave, if you watched Josh's documentary, ran the first ever Irish Smash Bros. Tournament. And he was just happening to study in Tralee, doing a journalism course, and he interviewed me at Kingdom 2. Um, so that was an interview I did. I believe he told me it's on his hard drive somewhere, but there's like a problem with it, so he needs to try and get it out. So I'm hoping someday Deadeye Dave will be able to recover that footage because I would love to hear that interview, to hear like a completely young Vince who knew nothing of the world and see his perspective on things. That'd be really cool. The other thing I would say is me and my friend Ronan, and I know Josh, John. Oh my God, sorry, John.
You're grand. We're an
I'm,
hour and a half in.
yeah, it's really hot. I've got like sweat under my legs from the heat. Um, me and Ronan used to run a podcast called Shower Time. We did this
You
during
beat me
COVID when
to
no
it.
events were happening. Uh, so this is like a way for us to reminisce in the scene and talk about a bit of the scene history. So I think it's on what's now the Smash Iron channel on YouTube. That used to be my channel. I might reclaim it as my channel because people aren't using it anymore, I don't think. So I might just take it back for myself. But we did a little series where each thing talked about different stories and funny moments in the scene. A lot of his story things about the history of the Kerry scene. We had some things about the history of the Cork scene, the Smash 4 scene. We had different guests in for different episodes. It was a really fun thing to pass time during COVID. So if you want a bit of fun lore of the scene, check that out, as well, of course, as Josh's documentary. I'd also, shout out your vlogs. Oh, there you go. Hey, you made that logo, John, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, that was very good. So yeah, there's a lot of things like that. I think I've probably been interviewed some other times too, over the years for different things. But yeah, I've also made some of my own kind of vlog things, like uh, sometimes jokingly, like the end of Smash Iron as we know it and things like that. But sometimes like the more serious stuff, like the Chow recrop and things like that, and the thing with the ultimate scene. Um, I think now that I'm here, I'm hoping I might once I hope we have some free time, I might start come up with some new projects. So maybe I'll start talking a bit more about some stuff soon with T.O.ing. I'll see where my curiosity takes me now that I have time to get bored again for the first time in my life since like I was 15, I want to say. So we'll see. But yeah, there's a lot of amazing things. I mean, I don't want to be this person who gets stuck in the past, but there's a lot of amazing things I would like people to know about because they were amazing. Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, I only really have one question left, which you've kind of led into very nicely. I think that as Irish people, we have a tendency not to talk about our own stories for too long unless we're given a platform, such as an interview or the Shower Time podcast. Told you beat me to it. I think that this format works as a decent platform, and I want to ask if I do this again with someone else, because you're the first person I've interviewed. I had the idea in the back of my head for a while.
Mhm.
Who would you like, even if it's a group of people, you can name multiple, who would you like to see interviewed if I do continue with it?
John, when you started talking there about this is a platform to tell a story, I thought you were going to ask me to tell the Steve story, and I got really
No,
nervous.
no.
So no, thank God you didn't. I would love to hear more. I'm always really curious about what happened in the scene before my time. So I would love to hear some of the old heads talking a lot more, like your your Antos, your Oltons, your Joshes, your Ruse, your Dan Hunters, your Deadeye Daves, your even on the there's other people in the software. You know who'd be great? I'd love to hear what BP has to say. BP's been here for so long. What does BP think? I'd love to get to see Diamond Zero, the old Neri TO, because I know I worked with him in the Ultimate days a bit. He was around when I was around, but I didn't realize he had all this history of running all these events that Professor Pro and stuff went to. There's a lot of really good old heads. I really want to see old heads. I love learning about the old scene. Like when Josh showed that documentary last year on Scummin and Deadeye Dave came up, I had no idea that Deadeye Dave like ran the first tournament. I just knew Deadeye Dave, and I knew like he was somewhat involved with starting the Aerodashes server, which is like the anime fighting game server in Ireland. So that shocked me. So like I love learning these bits of lore and finding out like certain people. Like there's a Galway player who plays a lot now, plays Ages. What's his name again? He's an older player. I forget his name, but he was actually one of the OG Smash 4 PR players like 10 years ago. And now he's back playing the Runny Weeklies. Like there's a lot of fun lore bits like that you can learn. And I know I have so many stories of random things from ages ago. So I would love to hear as much about that stuff as possible. And like I said, I'd love to hear more from Josh as well on that documentary. So hopefully we see more episodes of that as well.
Yeah, no, like I think that there's so many. The reason why I did this interview is because I thought, oh, I'd love to hear Vince talk for an hour about all this stuff, and no one else is gonna make it. I mean, here's a call to action. If anyone wants to just do interviews with Smash Arm players, it's not my idea. Just go for it. I
Mm-hmm.
want to see as many people steal my format as possible and do it better because it's not my format. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like I would love to see, Bev or Jules interview people. I think they could do it 10 times better, but I'm doing it, so that's all there really is. I guess that's the call to action for everyone is just create things, especially create things that will last longer than the event themselves because you can watch back a vlog, you can watch back an interview, that sort of thing. But yeah, I have some ideas for the future. I don't think they'd be as long as this interview because I don't think many people have as much history as you do. But I'd certainly be reaching out to you to get your help with questions on any of those interviews. So I might have to reach out to some people in the next few weeks. Vince, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Can I say one last thing?
Yes, you can.
Ah, sorry, this is going to be true. Donshan, your ass is grass at Chowlook. I'm going to kick your arsehole. Be ready. I'm going to be training, hopefully, here in this city. And my whole goal is to beat you. Thank you. Good night, Tri-State area.